Welcome to the ICE podcast, supported by the US Soybean Export Council.
Dr. Madhu Sharma, who will speak to us on protein and its importance. A few words about Dr. Madhu Sharma. She is a registered dietitian. She has been the senior dietitian at the prestigious PGI Chandigarh. She was also former convener of the IDA Chandigarh chapter, and she is currently a consultant dietitian and nutritionist in Panchkula. May I now request Dr. Madhu Sharma, please.
Thank you, sir, for the kind introduction, and a very good evening to all my friends there. Now, we are going to discuss proteins today, and I'll be starting off with discussing the importance of proteins. Are we actually taking adequate proteins as per the quality and the quantity required? And if you ask many people, they would say, yes, I'm taking dairy, I'm taking pulses, and I'm taking, other things which are protein rich. But the question actually arises, how much are they taking? Is it adequate for them or not? And is the quality that they're taking is adequate or not? So before I go into all those things, I would just like to give you a brief introduction of what actually proteins are. So protein is a word derived from the Greek proteos, meaning holding first place or primary. Now, proteins are made up of many building blocks known as amino acids. So protein is one of the essential nutrients or macronutrients as we call them, but it's not that all the protein we eat converts into proteins in our body. Actually, when we eat foods that contain amino acids, these amino acids make it possible for the body to create or synthesize these proteins. And so if we do not consume some of the amino acids, we do not synthesize enough proteins for our bodies to function correctly. So what are they composed of? Proteins have an amino group, an acid, a hydrogen, a carbon molecule, and a carbon side chain. Amino acid molecule, you have an amino group and a acid group over here, which is bound by the carboxyl group. And here, actually, these proteins, they are large molecules. Now, actually, when many amino acids, actually, they are connected, and these connected, the bonds that they are connected by, the links that they are connected by are called peptide linkages. There are two amino groups, an hydroxyl group from the acid end and one amino group, acid and a hydrogen atom from the amino group. They form a molecule of water and giving you the resultant dipeptide. Dipeptide means two amino acids getting together. Now, similarly, you can have a chain of linkages of various amino acids ranging from 2 to 99, and like dipeptide is to 2 amino acids. When there are 3 tripeptides, when there are 4 to 10 amino acids, they are oligopeptides, and when there are more than 11, between 11 to and up till 99 amino acids, they are called polypeptides. And an intact protein can have up to 100 amino acids. So these have a specific number and sequence of each of the amino acids, and they're unique to each protein. So basically there are 21 different amino acids, and every species, also including humans, they have their own characteristic proteins. So there are different forms of protein. Now we divide them on the basis of whether it's intact protein. We just heard about the amino acids. So when these amino acids are bound together in various linkage, as a bonded form, they actually are in a normal form, which are actually digested and absorbed very easily. And the next is the peptides forms, which are more suitable for people with malabsorption or whose digestion is poor. And then the basic one is the amino acid, which requires no digestion at all. Now, there are 9 essential amino acids of these, which the human body does not synthesize. That means it has to be taken in the diet. So all food proteins contain some of each amino acid, but they can be in different proportions. And the 9 essential amino acids that the human body does not synthesize are histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan, and valine. So the types of protein, they are the complete proteins. The foods that contain 9 essential amino acids, which are mainly from the animal sources like milk, meat, eggs, and poultry. So the non-essential amino acids are the alanine, asparagine, aspartate, cysteine, glutamate, glutamine, glycine, proline, serine, taurine, and tyrosine. So the incomplete proteins are what? foods which lack one or more essential amino acids, that means it does not contain all the 9 essential amino acids. And when they are consumed, these incomplete proteins are not fully utilized by the body. So incomplete proteins are usually found in plant foods, as they contain, not all of them, and like the beans, your nuts, grains, peas, etc. And then you have the third type, which are in between. They are like the complementary proteins. For example, grains are low in the amino acid lysine, while beans and nuts are low in the amino acid methionine. And other examples are corn with beans, yogurt, walnuts, brown rice with green peas, nuts and legumes and seeds, etc. Now there are certain classes, certain amino acids which are conditionally, essential. The non-essential amino acids become conditionally essential in certain pathological conditions, like in stress, or in premature born infants, or even in certain inborn errors of metabolism. And arginine, glutamine are typical examples. Like glutamine, they are used, have to be supplemented in cardiovascular diseases, cancer, trauma, thalassemia. And in phenylketonuria, which is inborn error of metabolism, you need tyrosine. So if you have enough protein throughout the day, there is no risk of a deficiency. In other words, what the recommended nutrient we say is protein actually, but what we really need, our body really needs, is amino acids. So a word about nitrogen balance over here. It is a measure of net change in total body protein. So proteins, basically, they are 16% nitrogen by weight. That means 1 gram of nitrogen represents 6.25 grams of proteins. There can be positive nitrogen balance, and that happens in certain states when nitrogen intake is higher than the output. And that happens in certain conditions, like in growing children, pregnant lactating women, or post recovery after illness, etc. And when the nitrogen output is higher than the input, it becomes negative balance. This could be a deficiency even from a single dietary source from the amino acid. So a prolonged negative balance may lead to serious consequences, like in children with PM or other characteristic state of diseases. So the protein quality here depends on various factors. One is whether it's animal or plant protein, what the amino acid composition is, what is the digestibility, and what are the limiting amino acids. So the parameters to assess the quality of protein are a few of them, like your in net protein utilization, protein efficiency ratio, biological value. So I'll just briefly go into this. The NPU actually aims to determine the percentage of amino acids consumed that are eventually converted into proteins and utilized by the body. It means actually you can calculate by the formula nitrogen retained by the nitrogen intake into 100. So protein efficiency ratio is another parameter which determines protein quality by measuring animal growth. The biological value, which determines the protein quality by measuring how efficiently the body uses the dietary protein. So it is actually measured by the nitrogen retained by the nitrogen absorbed into 100. So here this is in contrast to the NPU, which measures actually nitrogen retained by nitrogen intake. So absorption is the main important thing. And theoretically, the 100 is taken as the top score for a good biological value. So example is a whole egg, where which is considered the best whole food source of protein, whole food source for protein, and it was actually originally set as protein digestibility standard. So this one is the PDCAS, the protein digestibility corrected amino acid score, which is the best and most accurate now considered now. It measures the protein quality based on human essential amino acid requirement and ability to digest it. So the test protein is compared to a standard amino acid profile, and it's given a score from 0 to 1, with a score of 1 indicating maximum amino acid digestibility, like your casein and whey, etc. And meat and soya beans, etc., vegetables, they fall down the line. And it is currently considered the most reliable source of protein quality for human nutrition. So after knowing this, we have to ask why are they important, as I asked earlier. The function, what does protein do in our body? Our bodies are made up of thousands of different proteins, and they each has a very specific function, and they make up structural components of lots of our cells and tissues, like enzymes, hormones, etc. So basically they also provide immediate energy, but that is not a good thing, because that should not come from proteins. Energy should come more from carbs and fats. And then your enzymes, your hormones, structural proteins, your immunoproteins, your transport proteins, and other essential nitrogen containing compounds like your amino acids and melanin pigments and your neurotransmitters, your thyroid hormones. All of these are based are made up of protein. So I'll just go briefly from the different examples. You have these enzymatic proteins which accelerate the chemical actions like the digestive enzymes, catalyzing the hydrolysis of bonds in food molecules. The storage protein, typical examples are the casein, the protein of milk, which actually stores, it's a source of amino acid for the baby mammals, and the valbumin, which is the protein of egg white, which is used as amino acid source for the developing embryo. The hormone proteins like the insulin, estrogen, testosterone. Defense proteins, the main, the immune system here comes into play. The defense mechanism is involved here. The antibodies are, they inactivate and they help destroy viruses and bacteria. The transport proteins, they function of transporting substances along the circulation. So hemoglobin is one example. Then your receptor proteins are the response of cell to chemical stimuli. And then another example is the nervous system, where the fight or flight mechanism also is based on these proteins. Then you have the structural proteins. Keratin is the protein of hair, horns, feathers and other skin appendages, etc. And collagen and elastin protein also, they provide the fibrous framework, and they have a very specific role in anti-aging or anti-wrinkle forming. Proteins are multitaskers. They provide many essential functions in the body, like your digestive enzymes, your muscle, your movements, etc., your antibody support, supporting the immune function, and then your hormones, and then your regulation of the DNA and the RNA, so on and so forth. So, a word about protein and immunity, especially in the context of the pandemic these days. Why protein? How protein helps in building our immunity. Basically, protein malnutrition reduces the concentrations of most of the amino acids in plasma, and they regulate the activation of T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, natural killer cells, and the macrophages. They also regulate the cellular redox state, gene expression, lymphocyte and proliferation, and the production of antibody cytokines and other cytotoxic substances. And a lot of evidence has shown that dietary supplementation of specific amino acids to animals and humans with malnutrition and infectious diseases enhances the immune state, thereby reducing morbidity and mortality. So arginine, glutamine, cysteine precursors are the best prototypes. So now, how much protein is required by a body? And that depends on various factors. Everybody will not require one, size fits all. So it depends on age, your gender, your height. If you're taller, you need more. If you're shorter, you might need lesser proteins. Physiological conditions, the growth or pregnancy, lactation, etc., or any pathological condition, or sports activities. If they're athletes, they will have high requirements. Energy intake of an individual, and even emotional and stress-related situations can increase the requirement of proteins. So the recommended allowances by ICMR 2010 are it's actually based 0.8 grams per kg body weight. It can go up till 1 gram per kg body weight, depending on the various factors I just discussed, on your activity levels and so on and so forth. So the sources of recommendations are actually 1/3 to half of your total protein should come from the animal source in adults, and about 2/3 in children and pregnant and lactating women. So otherwise, on the another way of saying is 10 to 15% of your energy intake per day. And the sources of proteins I just mentioned, you have various qualities. You have the dairy ones, you have the poultry, the eggs, fish, etc. And then you have the other pulses, the nuts and oil seeds, grains, legumes, etc. So you have a multiple source of proteins, and an Indian diet can be easily made up with all the combination of all these. So what happens if your proteins are deficient in the body? You have a weak muscle tone. There's edema, swelling of the body can happen because of fluid retention. Your hair can become brittle and thin. Skin lesions can occur. In adults, there's loss of muscle mass, and as you age, this loss further increases. In children, there can be stunted growth, and even certain biochemical tests may show low serum albumin and hormone imbalances. And it can also arise in certain deficiency conditions or eating disorders, or in certain genetic conditions, or even late stages of cancer, or in people who have malabsorption, who are not digesting or absorbing properly. So like in IBS, IBD and gastric bypass surgeries, also protein requirements can increase, and so if they are not met, they can be deficient. So I would just end by saying, what tips you can carry home. Like, if you can have a varied diet, and it can actually provide you a very healthy, adequate protein diet. Eat variety of protein foods, choosing from dairy, poultry, eggs, fish, meat, soya, etc. Choose lean cuts of poultry, and avoid large cereal portions so that you can have more of protein serves, and ensure protein portion in every snack and meal. So finally, the take-home message I would end by saying that, since they are the building blocks of our body as amino acids, they are an important component of all our meals and snacks. A lack of adequate proteins in the diet can lead to lowered immunity, muscle loss, fatigue, and many other pathological conditions. The requirements are based on various factors. It's not that one set amount of protein would be adequate for the whole family. Children and elders in the home can differ, and animal proteins are definitely better or superior quality, and as they're better absorbed. And so, a judicious combination of the proteins-based foods, if they're incorporated in our daily diet, the requirements can easily be met. Thank you.